Most people in farming are really in the land business. And when you look at it from that perspective, you might find new ways to unlock value.
Maybe, your family's ground, you guys really like to just hunt the deer, and that's kind of the thing you want to keep to yourselves. But you've got waterfowl, you've got a farm pond with bass in it. You've got these other resources that are just kind of sitting there, right? It's underutilized.
That's Nic De Castro of LandTrust, who created an online platform to connect landowners to people interested in outdoor recreation. His big challenge has been getting landowners to put their trust in the system he's created.
You cannot shortcut trust, especially in the ag community. They've been burned by a lot of people. And the flip side of that is if you do build that trust and you earn it, they tell all their friends and family and neighbors about it, like people they know. So we grow organically just through our landowners telling other people about us.
LandTrust is taking an old concept, land use, and applying some really modern approaches to it. So whether you're a landowner or just interested in ag innovation, I think you'll find this episode worth your time. How big is the team now?
You know what? We're smaller than we've ever been, thanks to AI. So at our peak, we were about 22. We're 7 now. We had our biggest year ever last year.
What areas of the business has AI changed?
All of it, honestly.
Nic De Castro of LandTrust on today's Future of Agriculture podcast. Hello, fellow ag nerd. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Future of Agriculture. My name is Tim Hamrich, and every week you and I get to hear from the founders, farmers, innovators, and investors, the people shaping the future of the ag industry. A cool episode for you here today, and I think timely, given some of the exploration that we've been doing on the show recently with business models that might be outside of just commodity-driven agriculture, and also entrepreneurs accomplishing a lot with relatively small teams. So today's episode with Nic De Castro of LandTrust is very much along the lines of both of those themes. So LandTrust is an online platform that connects landowners to people looking for outdoor recreation, primarily hunting, but also in some cases fishing or camping. Think AirBNB for hunters, except for not with the lodging, but with the actual activity. So for most of you, that's probably not going to be a novel concept. Here in 2026, we've heard about people trying to Uberize or Airbnb-erize everything. But the concept isn't really the story here, at least not for me. The story is how Nic and his team are actually pulling this off, how they're building trust with farmers and ranchers and landowners, and how they're using technology, and especially AI, to create real value and solve real-world problems on both sides of this two-sided marketplace. Some quick background on Nic before we dive in. Nic De Castro is the founder and CEO of LandTrust, the marketplace that connects landowners and sportsmen seeking outdoor recreation opportunities. Since founding LandTrust in 2019, Nic has focused on helping farmers and ranchers unlock new income streams while expanding access to the outdoors. Prior to starting LandTrust, Nic worked in technology and entrepreneurship, and he now writes and speaks about the intersection of agriculture, land stewardship, and the growing outdoor recreation economy. He lives in the Southeast and spends as much time as possible hunting, fishing, and exploring rural America. And don't let the name LandTrust fool you here. This has nothing to do with land trusts, so people like putting land into trusts. It really is just the simple concept of needing to build trust between landowners and people wanting to enjoy the land trust. Nic will explain a lot more about how it all works, and I'm going to drop in the conversation here where he's describing a typical arrangement with landowners.
We started in the West, started in Montana. We have a bunch of ground there. We do have some ground in Idaho. I don't know. We have some stuff, I think, in your neck of the woods. But it's usually a family farm or ranch operation, multi-generation thing. We always know that not one single person can say yes to something like this. It's always a family decision. But they have some ground. They've got access to, fish, game, etc. And they want to generate some income because this is an operation. It's a business. You need to stack your enterprises. And so they look to a partner like us. So with LandTrust, we are truly business partners with our landowners. We don't charge you to list with us. There's no sale. I only make money alongside of you. So we make money on transactions. So let's just say you're a Western rancher out in Idaho and you got turkeys on your property, for instance. People love turkey hunting, and you could say, hey, look, my family doesn't really care about turkeys because we live in the West and turkeys are not elk. But yeah, we got a bunch of them, and we'd be happy to have a handful of guys come out, throughout the season, do a few hunts out here and generate a little income from that. So they could list their property, list turkey hunting, spring turkey hunting as a package. They could say, you don't have to have lodging, but if you do, that's great. So it could be, nope, no lodging, got to stay in town. Or you can tent camp, you can pull a rig, or hey, we got a little bunkhouse you can stay in, or whatever it might be. So it can span the gamut there and list that. And so whatever they choose their pricing, and they start hosting hunters. Everything is a request. No one can just book your place. It's not like booking a hotel where you just book it. So everything comes in as a request. You can talk to that person before you say yes. You can say no for whatever reason. But when you accept booking requests, then we send over property maps that we build with you and kind of like getting you listed. So we use Onyx Maps or HuntWise, some of these other digital maps. We'll build a map of the property that you want to list, boundaries, parking spots, stands, no-go zones, all that stuff, right? So those guests coming out kind of like know exactly where they should be going and where they shouldn't be. And yeah, after the trip, you can rate that guest in that group and they can rate you. So if you ever use an Airbnb, a VRBO, any of these kinds of marketplace platforms, it's going to feel very, very familiar to you. We do $1 million general liability policy. All of our landowners are kind of covered under. We've never had an incident, thank God, knock on wood. And that's over like 6.5 years, 5,000 trips. So, we've had volume. All of our guests have to do ID verification. So we use a third party for that. So they got a, government, whether it's a driver's license or a passport, they pay with a credit card in full up front. Yeah, we just make it kind of easy to access this market without having to, make it safe and transparent. And yeah, that's usually how it starts. And I feel like in the West, it's turkeys. Turkeys are like the gateway drug. Like, yeah, we don't really care. Like, we got them. If people want to come pay us, and they're like, wow, people really like coming out and hunting turkeys. Actually, we do have some Idaho properties that do a ton of turkey hunts.
I believe it. They're everywhere. And then like down where you are, or where I used to live in Texas, I would imagine if you can monetize pig hunting on your place, like not only are you exterminating a pest, but you're also getting, people willing to pay you to come out there and do it.
That's right. And like even things, it's funny, in the West, ranchers think it's incredible, but like prairie dogs, coyotes, people love going, and I don't know if you've shot prairie dogs, it is extremely fun. People pay to come out and shoot prairie dogs all day. And especially some of the long range shooting guys, they really, really enjoy it. So there's a lot of things like that maybe, your family's ground, you guys really like to just hunt the deer, and that's kind of the thing you want to keep to yourselves. But you've got waterfowl, you've got a farm pond with bass in it, you've got these other resources that are just kind of sitting there, right? It's underutilized. So this is a way for them to utilize it in a safe, transparent way.
Yeah. Well, I would think that, knowing the farmers and ranchers that I do, the first barrier is just to get them to consider it. Like just the idea of having someone I don't know on my property, it makes some of them just bristle. How do you tend to kind of overcome that what I imagine is an initial objection?
Yeah, I mean, certainly 2019, starting then, it was even more so because we're kind of making a new market in a way. Now, everyone has had door knockers since the beginning of time. So, when I first was starting this business, and I don't come from ag, I don't come from a landowning family. I came from the other way, right? Like I'm the consumer, I'm the hunter, fisherman that I would love to pay you to just go use the place for the day or whatever. But I was talking to these landowners and I heard the same story over and over and over and over again. And it was, yeah, we used to let people come out and then somebody did something stupid. So they stopped, right? So 9 out of 10 guys or gals were great. And then one idiot, ruins it for everybody. And then liability is always this concern, more so now than ever has been. So for them, getting over that idea, but it's really interesting. And it kind of makes sense when you say it out loud. Somebody who's willing to pay you your price for coming out to your property values it more than somebody who wants it for free. And I know that's like in the hunting community, it could be like, oh, that's crazy. And it's like, well, no, I mean, by definition, they do value it more. And so we've never had incidents. We have like 97% 5-star ratings of all these trips that have happened over 6.5 years from the landowners to their guests. And I guarantee you the 5-star rating of prior to LandTrust of landowners with hunters is probably not 5 stars. And I say that as a hunter. And I also think that technology's come a lot more. So things like Uber, Airbnb, VRBO, like these marketplace models are more ubiquitous in society now. So, even grandpa has interacted with it at some point at this point, 2026, right? Trying to do this model in 2015 would have been very, very difficult. But now I think it's just more kind of technology tailwinds behind us.
Yeah.
There's more trust.
Right. No, and that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I can remember not long ago, my wife would said I would never sit in an Uber. Like I would never just have someone I didn't know pick me up, and now it's a much more common. So it does make sense. And how about like logistically? I hear what you're saying about basically the hunter can kind of ask for whatever they want to ask for, but it's up to the landowner to say no or yes to whatever they want to. But once they sort of agree to terms, is it hands off for the landowner, or I mean, how do they have to kind of host them like Airbnb host would?
That's a great question. So no, we built this for the working farmer or rancher, people who've got 50 jobs every day and are trying to stay on top of it. So it's built to be totally do it yourself. Some of our landowners never meet their guests. But I will say some of our landowners that, thought they wouldn't want to do it, start doing it. And they really enjoy kind of like showing people around and telling the story of the family's place and all that. I do think that there's an immense amount of intrinsic value that our landowners have gotten out of hosting people from all over different walks of life in different parts of the country. And I would say that, look, almost all these places are multi-generation. By definition, they've lived and worked there their whole lives. And it kind of becomes mundane to them. And then to see their ground, their property, their operation through somebody's new eyes is like been very rewarding. So you do not need to handhold. This is all do it yourself. You could never see the people. But we do find that a lot of our landowners do enjoy some of that interaction with them, especially because we're an extremely rural platform. So, these are very rural communities, and having people come in from other places is, I think, kind of refreshing sometimes.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's huge. I lived in a town called Bird City, Kansas of 400 people or so. But we had this little rundown steakhouse that people would drive to from all over the region to come to the steakhouse. And it's like, boy, without that, the economy wouldn't have much else going on other than farming in that steakhouse. But bringing people in from out of town can really help keep things afloat.
Well, it is one of those things, too, beyond just kind of like the keeping things from a cultural perspective, but also, yeah, I mean, we kind of look like a rural economic development business, right? Because not only is the landowner, and actually North Dakota's development fund actually invested in LandTrust a few years ago for this reason, because not only is the family that's listing their land on LandTrust and hosting people making money directly from this, but also you have people driving across country. They're going to buy gas in town, eat at the diner, drink at the bar. They're bringing in economic development into that little town, just like you're saying.
Yeah, and when you're on a vacation or a trip or an adventure, you're ready to spend some money.
That's right. Yeah, you're spending money.
So you've kind of answered the question of like, okay, why do farmers need a partner, as opposed to just like posting this on Facebook? You've mentioned insurance, and you've kind of mentioned having an intermediary there to work out all the details. And the rating system sounds really good as well. And so the hunters would also rate the land as well, yeah?
Yeah, so every single trip. So I would say, like, as a landowner, as a farmer or rancher, you can absolutely do it yourself. You could build a website, you could figure out payments, you could do insurance, you could do advertising, you could post it on Facebook and field a bunch of tire kickers. You can do this, and people do it today. Just like before Airbnb, you could list your spare bedroom on Craigslist. And it could work, but it might not, and it might be kind of sketchy. So, we always say that we want to be very honest. You absolutely could do it yourself, or you can partner with us and make it super easy. You pay us 20%. And it's a lot safer. So, yeah, it's always good to be upfront about that. But yes, after every trip, both parties rate each other. So the guest rates kind of their experience across a few dimensions, and then vice versa, the landowner rates the guests and across a couple dimensions as well.
And then so LandTrust takes 20% from what the guest pays. And how much money are we talking about for a landowner? Obviously, this is going to vary quite a bit by what they're offering, but like, do you have an average amount of revenue that a LandTrust host is bringing in, or kind of how can you give us a sense of how meaningful this revenue is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it depends is, of course, the answer here. We have some listings that are 5 acres, and we've had a 50,000 contiguous acre listing. So obviously, you have an incredibly diverse range of earnings. But I mean, $5,000 to $10,000 a year is probably right in the meat of things. We have landowners who make $80,000 to $90,000 a year. So it all depends on what you have access to on your land, what you're willing to list. A bunch of factors. Do you have lodging capability, that kind of stuff. So I hate saying it, but it really completely depends. If you're a 12,000 acre ranch in Montana with high quality elk and mule deer and a general unit, like, you're going to make a bunch of money. But if you have a good turkey population on a property in Idaho, I mean, there's some places in your neck of the woods that do really well just off hosting a handful of turkey hunts a year. So it just depends on what the property is, the amenities, the access to high quality fish and wildlife, et cetera. Yeah, our landowners are definitely paying for like a lot of them pay for property taxes with land trust. Like we're never going to cash flow, a land note with something like land trust, right? But you can absolutely stack it in, and it's almost pure profit.
Right. So, I mean, if you inherited a property, as an example, but you also inherited this big tax bill, and you don't necessarily want to rent the whole thing out, this would be a great way to cover that tax burden. Because one of the questions I had for you is like, okay, if I have a property that is desirable to hunters, my perception, being someone who doesn't come from money, would be they don't need the money. What kind of tends to motivate them to want to list on land trust? Is it the money? Is it usually that kind of next generation wants to pay for the taxes that they inherited, or what do you hear most?
Well, look, I think especially in from the ag community, it is, you got to stack enterprises. Just farming, just ranching is fickle and it's hard to do unless you're doing it at large scale. So it really is that kind of stacking enterprise mindset. Like, okay, cool. We're in the land business. We're not in the cattle business. We're in the land business. We've worked with guys from Ranching for Profit and others like that who really help agricultural families think through, the land business, not just cattle or corn or beans or whatever it might be. So the landowners who love us are very much of that mindset. Like, hey, we're in the land business. We got to make money from all the different aspects of it, stack these enterprises. And then there's also just landowners who love hosting folks. They just do. Like I said, there's a kind of an intrinsic value to it too, but it's usually a financial thing. Financial, but also wanting to retain control. Going back to earlier in the conversation, hunting leases have been around forever. That's not a new concept. But for this type of landowner, again, giving up control is really something they don't want to do. And that's kind of what you used to have to do to make money from the recreation value of your ground,
Right. And I know you said, hunting is the vast majority of interest here, but fishing as well. And is fishing generally like ponds, just private ponds?
Yeah, so down here where I'm at now, there's a lot of farm ponds with bass and brim, bluegill and stuff. But in the West, we have a lot of properties that have, streams or, rivers running through their property. So it could be either. Just depends.
Okay. Interesting. Well, it kind of sounds like you stumbled upon this problem because, you were interested in hunting other people's land, but I also know you've got this background in digital marketing. Talk about kind of your background that led to, all right, not only do I have this problem as a hunter, but I could be the one to solve this.
Yeah. So I spent the first decade or so of my career in the marketing and advertising technology space. I got to work with a lot of really big companies and brands, helping them to acquire customers online through things like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, et cetera. So it's a very great kind of like, I don't know, skill set to have when you're building a digital platform. It's like, hey, how do we acquire customers, or how do we make people aware of us? So I do think, and I worked in technology startups again throughout that 10-year period before starting LandTrust. So it did kind of gear me up a little bit more. It was maybe a little bit more positioned well to be able to build something like what we've built. Of course, my team, I would do nothing without them. It's not me building this. I'm not a technologist, right? I'm a sales guy, really. So I've got a great team, customer service and landowner operations and engineering. So it's definitely not me by myself. It's a great team effort.
How big is the team now?
You know what? We're smaller than we've ever been, thanks to AI. So at our peak, we were about 22. We're 7 now. We had our biggest year ever last year, and this year's we're up 50% year over year to date. So it really is something where, because we are a technology platform at our core, although we never talk about ourselves like that. We're a service business. When you read reviews about LandTrust, it's about our customer service. Yes, technically it's technology, it's a platform, but we really see ourselves there. So we lean into that, and our headcount is really like technology and then service.
And so what areas of the business has AI changed?
All of it, honestly. I mean, it was funny. Last January, I was like, nah, AI is a joke. It's a gimmick. This is a toy. And I can't remember what it was, but I got like red pilled on it. And I was like, holy crap. We need to be using this across the organization immediately. And I probably go back and find the post in our project management software. But basically, I was like, we're going to be doing this every day. You guys need to be using this. And we started to develop our kind of like how we work with it internally. So across everybody at the business is using it every day for their work. And then, of course, our technologists, my chief technology officer and the engineers have been using it to build product. And now we're actually rolling out AI assistants to our customers. So Buck is the name of our sportsman assistant. He's about to be a really good trip planner. So you, instead of like, doing a search for Idaho turkeys and then seeing search results and then clicking and, all that, you're just going to tell Buck like, hey, I need to find a place to go hunt turkeys with my daughter. She's 6 years old. I want to find a place that has, maybe some blinds already and a place we can park our travel trailer. And Buck will just serve you like the two that you should look at. So that's happening right now. And then we're building an assistant for our landowners to basically be like your virtual landman, just like your right-hand man who knows everything, helps you run your business and make more money with doing less work.
Okay. So take me back to that decision a year ago, whenever it was. It's like, hey, everyone in the organization needs to be doing this. What does that look like? If I'm your employee, what are you telling me to do? Are you telling me to kind of create a plan of like, what AI tools can I leverage to do my job better? Or is this like, hey, we need to build Buck, so let's all hands on deck build Buck? What exactly does that look like?
Yeah. No, so look, you take marketing. So from a marketing perspective, you've got to write a bunch of copy for emails and text messages we send and social, and even just coming up with campaign ideas. So it's like, okay, you start using from that. Like, help me build all these things. And this is stuff that used to take forever to do, right? It's copywriting. I feel sorry for copywriters. Copywriter is not a job that will ever exist again. That sucks. So it helps us, like, you can go and put out a 10 email campaign in minutes, and that would have taken so much time before. From a strategic perspective, me as a CEO and founder, like, I'm in there constantly, like, kind of bouncing ideas off of AI and asking it to pressure test my strategy and thought process and opportunities. In customer service, we're able to go and analyze a large data set of inbound inquiries and messaging going back and forth and kind of say like, oh, these are the three main kind of topics that we're seeing right now happening in customer service. And then listing building. When we onboard our landowners, we'll build your listing for you. We know you're busy. We don't need you to log into the platform. We'll handle it. We'll do like an onboarding call with you. We'll record the call. We tell people we do this. And then we'll digest that and ingest it into, AI, and it'll help us write all the copy for the listings and do it the best possible way to be, more attractive. So across all areas of the business, AI is being leveraged every day. And it's just more of a throughput thing. Now, you don't want to, it can be wrong. So what I like to say is it gets you 80% of the way there instantly, and then you got to tweak it and make sure it's right. And, it'll go off in tangents. So you can't just like put it in and then whatever it spits out, go with it. You have to read it and make sure it's correct and tweak it and all that stuff. So, but it does get you like 85% of the way there almost instantly. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is crazy. And I mean, as you're continuing to grow, especially with this kind of new sort of AI enabled mindset, what areas will you be hiring? I think that's an interesting question. A lot of us are asking, like, okay, what are the human skills that are in demand in this new AI world we live in?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I do want to reassure folks listening, we will always have human beings ready and willing and eager to hop on the phone and talk to you or text with you or whatever. So we're not one of those companies that's trying to like tell you this is a person, but it's actually AI. No, we will tell you like Hank is an AI bot that will be your helper, but you can always call Josh or Colin, and they're there talking to people all day, every day. So I always want to make sure we say that. We're not switching over to full AI. There will always be people to talk to. Really, when you look at hiring now, it is engineering. Now, instead of hiring 5 or 6 customer success people, you could have one really good customer success person who's leveraging AI and then helping the people who need something that the AI couldn't help them with. So you're being able to service a lot more people with a lot less people. So we'll have, more engineering is probably where you put those resources in the near future to build product that's really good to service people. And you still have your human beings who are really good and qualified who oversee this stuff.
Yeah. I want to talk about kind of marketplaces in general, because in the past I've been somewhat critical of a lot of marketplace ideas, because they get simplified down to like, we have buyers and sellers, we're just going to be the one to put them together. And it's like, all right, you probably don't understand the problem well enough if that's what you're doing. But this is one of the rare cases that I will say, like, I can totally see the motivation, but also the problem of just kind of doing it yourself. And so you're adding a lot of value to the landowner. And I wonder if that was like an important part of the strategy up front. It's like, okay, we need to add a ton of value to the landowner and make it just easy on them. And then we'll kind of attract the hunters, or was it really kind of split 50-50?
Yeah, that's a great question. So marketplaces are unbelievably difficult businesses to build. You're building 2 businesses in parallel. You're building a supply business and a demand business, and then they have to interact. So they're very difficult. but they're very powerful and the network effects are very strong once you get them going. I mean, Craigslist is still a behemoth and hasn't changed in 20 something years. The harder side of our marketplace is supply being landowners, right? That's the harder side for us to get. And it makes sense, right? For all the reasons we've talked about. It's a family decision. It's a large asset. There's, always multiple decision makers in it. So it's just the harder side to get. Making sure that it's safe, transparent, and then especially in the ag community, as you know, trust is in our name for that reason. I didn't even know what conservation easements were when I started the company. So when I named it LandTrust, I didn't know that there was other connotations for, people probably laugh like this guy's an idiot, but I was an idiot. But yeah, so I took the two most important words, like land, we're a private lands company, we're staunchly pro private property rights, it's the centerpiece, and then trust, because this thing only works with trust. Like the landers have to trust us and they have to trust people they're bringing out, vice versa. So making a platform that's easy to use, trustworthy, and relationship building. And it just takes time. You cannot shortcut trust, especially in the ag community. They've been burned by a lot of people. And the flip side of that is if you do build that trust and you earn it, they tell all their friends and family and neighbors about it, and like people they know. So we grow organically just through our landowners like telling other people about us. It's not one of those things you can just go dump a bunch of money into Facebook ads and acquire a bunch of farmers and ranchers. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you. So I mean, is the only way to kind of build that trust one landowner at a time, or how have you figured out ways that you can do it at scale?
Yeah, there's momentum. So I mean, look, when we were starting this business, we were kind of market making, right? This didn't really exist before us. There have been some people who tried some stuff, but they just weren't successful for, I'm sure, a myriad reasons. So now we don't have people in the field. We used to have people in the field, right? We'd have what we called landowner success managers. And we knew going into a new market with a totally new product and concept, we needed to have face-to-face. Like you got to sit down, go meet with them, build trust. And they were very invaluable getting ourselves to break into markets and to, get land live and to get the marketplace going. And then we phased out of that because it's also expensive. You're paying people full-time salaries and all that. Love those people. They're amazing people. Our landowners still talk about them, even though they haven't been here in a couple of years. So now with kind of a momentum and the network effects that we've seen, we grow pretty well through just spreading, through, you get your first people in a new state and those people are part of a community. It's usually the more progressive landowner. And I'm not saying that from a political perspective. I'm saying like they're willing to try things. They're usually the ones who bring us in and they try us, and then people are looking to see if it's working and how it's working, and then they start doing it. So that's how we've seen spread, across regions and states and stuff like that. And then frankly, podcasts. Podcasts are phenomenal for us to let people know what we're doing, because that's really what it is. It's awareness. And this format is the best format because it's long form. You can ask all the questions. It's not a 30-second ad on the radio or whatever, right?
And it's a person behind it. I mean, that's people trust people, especially in this day and age. We don't trust information. We don't even trust data anymore. It seems like we just people trust people that they feel comfortable with. And so, yeah, I think, of course, I'm the biggest advocate for podcasts in general, but it makes sense to me. You've done marketing in a variety of different industries. We have a lot of entrepreneurial people who listen to the show. What else can you share about marketing in, specifically to farmers and ranchers that has worked for you guys?
Certainly in the beginning, if you're getting something off the ground, nothing replaces sitting down with people in person. I would drive 12, 14 hours from Bozeman to Nebraska to sit in a room with 3 families and have dinner with them. 3 families. Nebraska, we had 0 acres, and we went and I drove 12 hours and had dinner with 3 families, and we got 500,000 acres there now or more. But it starts like that. There's no replacing trust. So if you're beginning with something, do it. Drive to where you got to go, meet with the people you got to meet with in person. Then obviously you have to have something valuable. So I'm very fortunate in that I've never had to sell anything to a farmer or rancher. My former COO was the former CTO of Bayer Crop Science. So he had a very different experience, right? He's like asking farmers for money. I've never had to do that. I bring the money. So like, hey, you keep the control and I bring the money to you if you want to do it. So I'm thankful that I never had to ask a farmer for any money or a rancher for any money. I think that's a very different thing. And then honestly, doing podcasts are an unbelievable vehicle. It is how we've grown this business because it allows for authentic conversations, for the all the normal questions and things that this type of landowner is going to have to be talked about. people can smell BS, right?
Yeah. Well, what's next? I know I thought it was really interesting what you're sharing about kind of the changes with artificial intelligence that you're embracing there, but kind of what's next for the company other than continued expansion?
Yeah, I mean, definitely that. We're partnering with different organizations. So something that's really interesting, we just partnered with a nonprofit called Turkeys for Tomorrow. So they're kind of the challenger organization to National Wild Turkey Federation. TFT, Turkeys for Tomorrow, is a phenomenal organization. And they're really kind of focusing on, which a lot of the nonprofits shy away from private land unless there's open, unfettered access to the public. And I think that's a really tough thing to ask private landowners to buy into. So TFT has really focused on partnering with private landowners and not requiring that to be part of it. And so what we're looking to do with those guys, and they're just making sure they're doing the science that there's more turkeys tomorrow than there are today, right? Turkeys for tomorrow. By partnering with them, we don't pretend to know. We're not science, we're not biologists, we're a platform operator. But we have 1.5 million acres of ground. A lot of that ground has turkeys on it. So 2 things. When someone books a turkey hunt on LandTrust, there's a $10 conservation fee. That's now going to TFT. If it's a turkey hunt, it's going straight to those guys. So if you're hunting turkeys, you might as well put a little bit in the hat for the guys making sure there's turkeys for tomorrow, right? But 2, for our landowners, I want those guys to give me the information on how to make better turkey habitat across the country for, different kind of like habitat and different regions so that I can push that to my landowners at key times during the year. So, maybe like, hey, it's, I don't know, June. Don't mow the edges around, here because whatever, they're going to be, I'm obviously not a biologist, but these quick tips, right? Hey, we know that you're in southern Idaho. This is what's happening with turkeys right now. If you can, maybe do prescribed burn because it's going to make better, poult habitat. So just giving these quick tips to a very busy landowner to say, hey, look, you're making money from having high quality habitat. Here's how to do it better and to have more of that resource in the future. And not in like a, huge digest, but literally like don't mow for the next 3 weeks if you can, or whatever that might be, for instance. So those are some cool things that we're working with. And we want to work with the other organizations because here's the thing. Landowners on LandTrust only make money if they have high quality habitat and wildlife. So it doesn't matter how big your ground is. And this is putting the profit incentive behind having high quality habitat and wildlife. If it pays, it stays is really, kind of the mantra there. So we want to have stronger wildlife populations next year than we had this year because we're motivated not only by an ethos, but also by the profit incentive. And so I think that's what's really interesting as we continue to look forward is to give our landowners the best resources in a timely manner that's focused specifically for them on little things they can do and change to make better wildlife habitat and resources.
That's cool. This has been great, Nick. We've gone places that I wasn't expecting, but it's been really a lot of fun. What didn't we get to, though, that's an important part of the story that I just didn't know enough to lead us toward?
Yeah, look, we've talked to thousands of landowners over the years, and whether it's a ranch in Montana, a farmer in Kansas, a timber holder in Alabama, all these multi-generation families are different and unique, and they're all the same in some ways. So you see this like common thread. And I would say if it's something that folks are considering, talk about it with your family, of course. Take a little piece and try it. That's what we see all the time. Like, all right, we'll try it with this little piece and we'll try it with this thing and just see how it goes. You can stop anytime. There's no long-term contracts. Our goal is to be so good. Why would you ever leave? So that's really the thing here. And I do think that this next generation of land ownership that's coming in, they're digital natives, right? So these are platforms, and we work with a lot of young farmer and rancher with Farm Bureau and that crowd. I do think it's not a silver bullet, but it is a tool in the toolbox that can be used correctly to, maybe bring a family member back on farm or ranch or pay for taxes or, that kind of thing, right? So it's almost pure profit to the bottom line because it's a resource you're already sitting on top of every day.
Very cool. Well, Nick, I appreciate this. I think what you're doing is awesome. And I hope more landowners sign up. And we'll obviously put a link in the show notes to landtrust.com if you haven't heard about it. And similarly, if you want to hunt, fish, camp, or just enjoy kind of the outdoors, it'd probably be a good place to look as well. But thank you for being on the show.
I really appreciate you having me on, Tim.
Well, thank you once again to Nic De Castro of LandTrust. Really encourage you to go check out their website, which is just landtrust.com. You can learn more about outdoor recreation opportunities if you're so inclined, or if you're a landowner, see if that might work in your operation, if that could add a little revenue in all the right places at all the right times. Thank you again to Nic for sharing that. Really interesting how they're using AI as well to keep their team small while they grow their business bigger and bigger every year. And hey, if you were compelled by his comments about how well podcasts work in reaching rural landowners and farmers and ranchers, I've got news for you. After about a year of not working with companies and brands on this show at all, I'm ready to open things back up again. So if you're interested in podcast sponsorship or advertising, I'd love to set up a conversation and chat with you to see if it might be a fit on both sides. You can reach out to me, tim@aggrad.com. Well, thank you all for staying to the end. Thank you, as always, for your time and your attention. I do not take it lightly. I'll be back next week with another story of ag innovation.